Welcome back to another episode of the Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is my dear friend and teacher. Her name is Allison. She also goes by Song of the Water. She is a Mexica medicine woman, starseed caregiver, and teacher. She's a land steward of Mount Shasta and a songstress, as well as a channel. Those are just a few of the descriptors for my dear friend Allison. Allison, welcome onto the Spiritual Teachers Podcast.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for having me. I know that's a mouthful. It's hard to narrow down when you're a multifaceted, um, multi-dimensional space holder, I guess you would say. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just kind of skimming the tip of the iceberg, you know. And I know you do so much and you have so many passions and so many different ways that you've practiced with. I know you started with yoga and transitioned over to the Red Road. And I'd love to touch on Mount Shasta because I know you've been living there for several years. I'd love to talk about the Star Children that you and I both work with. I'd love to potentially discuss the Red Road and Sweat Lodge and neurodivergence. So we'll see what Spirit has in store with those topics, but that's our intention for this podcast. So um, I would love to hear about your awakening and kind of how everything started for you, and I'd love to hear that.
Yes. Um, in a nutshell, how do we do this? Okay. So, I think for as long as I can remember, I perceive the world with eyes of like just ancient eyes, like I've been here before. Um, and it was a little bit hard for me to connect with others as a child because I think, always drifting between the higher realms and this space here, this 3D realm. And so since I was 10 years old, I was always searching for God and kind of started with poetry and the arts. But fast forward later on, when I was about 21, I started to learn about yoga and I saw this flyer. It said Himalayan Yogi Master retreat, or it was some sort of conference at this facility in Marin.
Mm. And that's
Yeah,
California, right?
yeah, Marin. Yes, California by San Francisco, crossing the Golden Gate Bridge. And I remember at that time I didn't have my car, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make it there. Like I don't know how, but I took like 3 buses to get there. And I remember I was wearing this bright red shirt, like walking up this hill, and all of a sudden I finally get to this space, and it was like a temple, and everyone was wearing white. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm getting myself
That's how you know
into,
it's
but
real.
that's how you know it's real. And I was like, I'm sweating. Like, I'm like, okay, this is how this path is going to be. Like, that was like the first thing that I heard in my mind. And I said, but I'm ready. And I remember maybe like a week before that, I don't know why, but I broke down and cried. And I felt like something was coming, something big. And I prayed and I said, okay, great spirit creator, show me what it is that you are going to show me and who I am. And then I walked into this space and I sat down, and this little yogi walks in wearing all white with this long white beard, and everyone stands up, and I felt this presence. I remember getting chills, and he started to answer all of the questions that I ever had about creation, about reincarnation, about karma, about death. Um, and I noticed that he was reading my mind. It was like an omnipresence where I would have a question, but I was too scared to ask. So then another person would ask. It was like you knew God was in the room because we were all one mind and one consciousness. We
Like
were
the
almost
collective
communicating.
consciousness was there, right?
Yes, yes. And I felt, but that was like my first time experiencing it, at
Mm-hmm.
least consciously,
Mm-hmm.
or that I was aware of. Um, and uh, so what we were doing, unbeknownst to me at the time, was that gathering was called a satsang. And
Mm-hmm.
so uh, he was essentially awakening our Kundalini.
Mm.
So we all went up one by one. And I remember standing in front of him, but like it was like I was um, profile, side profile view, and he took a peacock feather and he said, it's time. And so took the peacock feather from my root all the way up my spine to the crown and said something in Hindi or Sanskrit, and that was it. And after that, I remember the next day,
Just as easy
every
as that. That was it.
well, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
At that time, I had no idea like what a Kundalini was, like chakras, life force energy within the spine, like none of that.
So
So
what is Kundalini for those listeners that don't know?
Kundalini is the life force energy that coils at the bottom of the, well, at the root, at the base, which is located between the genitals and the rectum. That energy comes from the earth itself. And so moves up. So what happens when you do certain sacred techniques, like for instance, this is called Kriya. The ancients would use Kriya, ancients such as Buddha, such as Yeshua, um, to bring that life force energy up through the spine with a breathing technique, which is Kriya itself. And what it does is it awakens that dormant energy that we all have, which is that God essence,
Mm-hmm.
who we really are, right?
Right.
And the way that it can be brought up is through the breath and through visualization of bringing that light, that life force energy up through the spine, through the base, the sacral, um,
Solar
solar
plexus.
plexus, all the way up. So that, you know, for those of you who aren't aware, we have seven main chakras that we speak of. And so that energy moves up, it awakens the chakras that are blocked. And many of us carry ancestral karma and trauma or our own karma from past lives that we need to clear. So, what the Kriya does is that it brings the light up, essentially uh, reconnecting you with God consciousness, which is the Father. So the Mother helps move the energy up, the energy of the Divine Mother, of Mother Earth, of Tonantzin, of La Virgen de Guadalupe, whatever you'd like to call her, Earth Mother, moves up and then moves out of the crown and connects to divine consciousness, the Father. And so there's this union between feminine and masculine energy within us. And if we can all attain this, we we can become ascended masters, which is actually why we're here, is to remember that we are ascended masters. So give thanks for these ancient practices. I hope that
Beautiful.
answers the question.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add to that is that
Mhm.
from my understanding, Kriya is also like can be a set of movements. It's not necessarily just a breath technique. Whereas like in Kundalini yoga, they call them different Kriyas, where it's like yogic movements, but it's all meant to raise that Kundalini, to align our spine and to open our third eye to connect to that divine consciousness, like you were mentioning. So I think that was really beautifully said. And for those that also don't know, the chakras are like energy centers. They're like meridian points. In acupuncture, you have different points. These are like the main seven in the body, and then you have different nadis and different meridians that kind of branch off of that, like a tree. Um, and so, yeah, I think you beautifully described that. And so he uses this peacock feather to raise your kundalini. You don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens after that?
Um, I just wanted to add, just to simplify really quick, that each center actually does represent like an aspect of life.
Mm,
So, what I've seen and each level, each chakra is, whatever specific center that we may have a blockage, that sort of kind of lets us know what karma we're clearing, not just for ourselves, but for our ancestors. Like for me, it's the throat. And
mm,
so when I found my medicine, which is the song, that's when I started to realize my purpose. So the healing and the unblocking of these chakras also is a roadmap to your life purpose. If
mm,
So I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, when I met this master after this Kundalini awakening, he not only awakened our Kundalinis with the peacock feather, but we were initiated into the sacred practice of Kriya Yoga. And
mm.
so, like you said, there are different also aspects of Kriya, like within yoga, there's the asana postures, which are the physical postures, which were created to make the body limber enough to sit in longer periods of meditation, which
A
is
lot of people
actually,
don't know that.
yeah, yeah. People think that it's like that's like the main source of yoga, and the word yoga literally derives from the word yog, Y-O-G,
Hmm.
which is like essentially union with God through the breath. And the yoga is the breath. That
Hmm.
is the communication with source. Um, but yeah, the next day, everything, I kid you not, was the colors. Like I can't explain to you what I experienced on a sensory level. It's nothing
Mm.
that I could put into words. The birds, there's something I think that Eckhart Tolle talks about in one of his books, The Power of Now, um, where he talks about his awakening and how he heard the birds chirping, and it was like the first time he heard them. And that's how I can or explain or depict uh, the experience of awakening to that crystal clear essence of God within yourself
Mm.
and seeing it in everything.
So
It's
everything became vibrant and alive, and like it was kind of like a newborn's awe, right? To life again, it's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, like pure joy.
Hmm.
Just like all of the higher level emotions that you can think of, like gratitude, joy. The joy was, and I had a really hard childhood. I grew up in a broken home. My dad was an addict. My mom was in prison. There was a lot of darkness and density. And so to experience that level of peace when I was 21 was like, okay, this is actually what life's about. Like I can come out of my depression. There's something here on earth for me to do, and I'm gonna make it worthwhile by walking this path and choosing to awaken.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of spiritual seekers, there's a similarity in that where like there's this deep depression, this dark night of the soul, as some people call it, and it's not just one night, it's usually months or years, right?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like going down into those depths of hell in order to like see what like as bad as it could get, and then rooting down and choosing like the choice to come out of that and then grow the roots in the tree up to the heavens and experience this peace and bliss and joy that you were mentioning. Um, so yeah, I've seen that pretty much with almost with every spiritual seeker that I've spoken with. So that's really um, kind of seems like an essential part of reaching that other space because it gives that duality, it gives that yin yang for people to experience. And so, can you talk a little bit about this teacher? What was his name, and is he still around?
Yes, his name is Yogi Raj Sat Gurunath Siddhanath. He's of the Nath lineage. If you're familiar with Hinduism, um, like Shiva is a Nath yogi, like an incarnation of Shiva Goraksha Babaji, who was like Jesus, a physical incarnation of a deity that
Hmm.
was here, but was also known as the formless one. So he's connected to this particular lineage of yogis in the Himalayas that you hear about these yogis that go into the snow and, they're breatharians and they can survive without shoes. And so he's one of those beings.
Mm.
And yeah, and to be called to that path and like grow up Catholic was it was a beautiful journey because of discovery
Hmm.
because for me yoga actually was the the perfect balance between spirituality and science, which is what
Mm.
I was seeking my whole life.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so that's what he provided for me was like he was my guide for many years, 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember the last time I saw him, I helped put together Guru Purnima, which is an event basically honoring the gurus and the spiritual teachers in San Diego. And it was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. At the end, one of the last things he said was, when the student is ready to embark on their own journey without their teacher, they will be pushed out of the nest. And
Wow.
that was
I'm getting chills.
I'm getting chills. Literally, my little hairs are standing up. And so that was Peter right before the pandemic.
Mm.
That was like 2019.
Hmm.
Yeah, or 2018. Yeah, something like that. And it was right by the ocean and I'm really connected to the water, so that was significant for me. But that was it. It was like I literally was pushed out of the nest. Like
Mm. And you
the
felt
pen.
it.
Oh, I felt it. It
Hmm.
was almost like I wasn't like m- the universe was putting up like roadblocks for me when I wanted to like meet up with him again or go to India to the retreats. It was like, nope, this isn't for you right now. Like now you're meant to figure it out on your own. And he would say, like, I am just your mirror. Like I am you.
Mm.
You manifested me to remember who you are. And
Oh
he would
yeah.
say, I am a master of masters. I'm a master of masters, and the
Wow.
people who come to me are these ancient beings that are ready to be masters themselves within this lifetime.
So in that moment, did you know, did you have a sense that you kind of became the teacher in that regard? You didn't realize it right away. Okay.
Oh, no, 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 no. There was because I was conditioned to believe, especially based on my trauma and like not really believing in myself and in my gifts. And I would say I'm thankful for my trauma because it's kept me humble to be able to carry this pure heart and like not let any of the siddhis or the spiritual gifts that are coming in get to my head because that is really, really important because it will happen as you heal, as you awaken, your spiritual powers come online.
Oh yeah.
Um, but we must remember, like to be humble, to be grounded, to um, always give the credit to source.
Yeah,
I would.
my teacher would always say that these siddhis or these spiritual gifts are just a distraction,
Yeah.
from what's really important and the true path. For yeah, I think for some people that it can be like a way to show off or a way to like look cool on video or on Instagram, right? Or YouTube and like to show like, oh, look at what I can do. But then the true masters, the true teachers, they don't flaunt any of that because they understand that it's just a bonus, right? Um like in video games, you get a bonus level. It's like you get a little bonus level to like explore this cool thing, right? But then like don't get too distracted because you got to come back to what you're here to do, to your purpose.
Yeah, I think especially right now because everyone is waking up, there's like there is an oversaturation of people that are discovering that they are teachers, which is not a bad thing at all because we are all on different levels of our awakening and
Hmm.
whatever frequency we're called to in terms of like what teachers we're attracted to or containers that are being created by these spiritual communities. Um, but it's also important to be very discerning
Oh, for sure.
because yeah, there, as you know, and we've both gone through it, you go through these rites of passage and initiations where you come across or you come in contact with these beings that are spiritual teachers that may not be working with the light, that come as false light. And some of them, you know, it might just be because they're seeking an identity. And this path is not for the faint of heart, and it's not about an image
Right.
or an identity. This is a calling. This is a mission
Hmm.
that we are, but that has been bestowed upon us, or that maybe at some level we chose to sign this contract to come back to Earth during these times. It's not an easy way of living.
No, definitely not.
It's and so I would just say, like, our great friend Christine, I'm sorry,
Karina.
Karina said this. She said, walk slow. And that always stuck with me because that's how I've seen my path unfold. It's like I started so long ago and I never, kind of to come back to your question, I never expected that I would be the quote unquote teacher because I was always the servant. I
Mm,
started as a sevak. Seva means selfless service. It was like devoting myself to serving,
hmm.
to not even speaking sometimes, just doing it from the heart. And and so being called and almost to understand that I was being molded the whole time to become who I am now, who I was always meant to be. And he saw that in me. Um, and I didn't see it in myself. So now, as I'm serving and as I'm holding space and creating containers, I'm still grappling with like believing in myself. But then when the miracles happen outside of me and people tell me what they're experiencing, that's the most gratifying thing. I think that's where, like, that's what keeps me going is like seeing that there are results and people are experiencing miracles within their lives just by me providing these these containers. And yeah, I never would have thought that I would be here. Never.
Okay, so that's it's such a beautiful journey, right? It's I love it. I mean, there's a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges, right? But then um being being one of the ones that are devoted to the path and continue to show up even in those really difficult times, there's like so much um like gratitude for those people in this world. And from my understanding in a lot of different spiritual books and these really ancient texts, they talk about the 144,000 people coming to the planet to raise the frequency and to bring the mass awakening. So, you know, as you were talking about these teachers coming online and so on, um, meaning like coming onto the planet, right? It those 144,000, it doesn't seem, it seems like a lot of people, but it's such a tiny, tiny percentage of the planet. If you think about 144,000 people in a billion, 8 billion people on the planet, right? So, it in I've found that in the spiritual communities, it seems like it's saturated with teachers, but really what's happening is we're all finding what we're here to teach. And
Mhm.
and like some people are going to teach kindergarten in the spiritual school, right? Like and then you got some people that are on like a more rapid path that are going to teach graduate school and college, you know? And but all those teachers are important. So
Oh,
just as important as the kindergarten teacher is, just as important as the graduate instructor is, right? So it really just everybody's gonna kind of falling into their nook, into their place with that mass awakening happening as we speak. And one of the intentions of this podcast was to help with the mass awakening so people can find teachers like yourself and others and be able to reach out and connect and work with people so that they can um, have a bit of a quicker path, I guess, that like condensing all those many years that you and I have put in to, you know, sometimes months or years, right? Like maybe it took 10 years to learn something. Now that we've learned it, we can condense it into this program or into a coaching or whatever way that we feel is most saturated and potent for the student.
oh.
Oh, so beautiful. So back to your journey, right? So you had this beautiful experience with I heard you mention him as your guru to me before, right? And so where did the path take you from there?
Um, so right when I met him, I knew, well, like I guess I wasn't aware that the awakening would be so painful
Mm,
at that time. But like mentioned before, I had a notion of something that was coming, like something transformational. But when I got initiated into the practice, my mom went to prison. Like I literally that following week, there was a detective that came to my door with like photos of people that were crossing the border and things that happened. And so as I was finally finding what I was looking for my whole life, I was experiencing devastation and tragedy. Um, and I realized that the healing comes with clearing. And sometimes we think that connecting to the light and awakening is going to be this beautiful experience of like bliss. And and yes, we have moments of that, but to get to the bliss, we have to go through the pain and that clearing. And so I experienced that ongoingly for almost 10 years,
Mm.
where it was like back to back initiations of really heavy karmic clearing. And actually, on the yogic path, the ancients say that it's a blessing to clear karma, that when the guru um, scolds you versus like strokes your ego, it's actually more of an honor because your ego is being um, and they say broken, but for me, I feel like it's all about integrating the
Right.
shadow, the ego. We know that now, right?
Hmm.
Um, so there was a lot of that molding and keeping me like, okay, are you gonna be good? Are you going to continue to seek the light no matter what, no matter if it hurts, no matter if you go through deception, if you go through deaths, if you go through tragedy, like who will you be?
Hmm.
And I continued on the path, and about 6 years ago, which is after the pandemic happened, I was almost 7 now. I was like lying in my bed at my childhood home, and I put on this song by Abuela Malinali, which is a Mexica elder. For those of you who don't know what Mexica means, it's basically it it's finally putting a name to our lost identity as Indigenous people for the Mexican community.
Mm.
Um, and because we are Indigenous, this is something that was taken from us. Um, After colonialism, and we'll get into that later. But I was lying in bed, and as the drum came on, the medicine drum, the sound of the hand drum, um, my body started to shake and my
Mm.
cells started to vibrate, and I got very emotional. And I didn't know what was happening to me. It almost felt like a Kundalini activation. And I was waiting for it for so long, like meditating, right? And doing the Kriya constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like seeking that like level of elevation, energetic elevation. And finally, there I am lying in bed listening to an elder sing from my culture. And I began to remember the sound of the drum and my connection to it.
Mm.
And
Beautiful.
it was yeah, it was just very clear that the ancestors were calling me back to my roots and to steer so far away, literally east, to go so far away to learn. And I spent many years in India. I went to the Himalayas through that time, that chunk of time with my teacher, all over the world to be called back to my own people where the most powerful medicine lies in the world
Mm.
um, has been something that I'm very, very grateful for. And it's allowed me to really to understand like, okay, this is like now I'm gathering all of my tools, the modalities that I've learned along the way, and now it all makes sense because I was meant to be brought back to my people and to bring the medicine to my people.
And it's really important. It's really, really important because um, I feel as though each one of us that of those 144,000 that I mentioned, each one of us has a very specific group of people that are going to resonate and connect to just that individual, and it'll shift kind of like waves in the ocean where you have new students, old students leave, but overall, it's it's just another way because, for example, like I speak Russian, right? I was born in Russia, so people that speak Russian, they can connect with me on that level. For you, being of Mexican descent, people connect with you. You can speak Spanish with them. They can connect with you. You look similar to them, right? Like they're like, oh, okay, this person, I trust them because they actually get get my life. They get my culture. They get where I'm from, and it's so beautiful to see how many different, like, I've met awakened people of every color, race,
Yeah.
size, sexuality, you name it, right? Like, because we have to have basically like a representative, right? For every little niche and little diversity in the world, So it's so beautiful to to see that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I almost see it as like religion. It's each religion came from a different part of the world during a different era, right? Where the world was going through a cycle and it needed a teacher or it needed a prophet to represent that tradition or that part of the world. You see these deities and where based on where they come from, they're wearing that garb, right? That attire, that regalia. And it's because there is a singularity between all religions. It's just different paths to get to the same place. And of course, it came from all places, from all over the world. So, kind of like us as the 144,000, we are each these spokespeople or like embodiments of these messengers for our own people,
Hmm.
for our communities. And yeah, and each of us carry different medicine. And it's so beautiful. That's why I'm like, you guys, we don't have to compete. Like, let's just come together because each of us carries a different frequency. And we're all almost helping each other awaken those latent gifts within ourselves as we are reflections, as we like sit in these sacred ceremonies, to remember that we're literally all mirrors. Like, even as a space holder, you see, like, you'll be going through something, and then everybody in the group is going through something similar, right?
Hmm.
And it's like they're helping you as much as you're helping them. They're helping you heal as like they're telling their story, you
Absolutely.
know? And that's something that I've learned along the way to not be shy about is like share your story. Because when you share your story, people really only see what's in front of them, right? But if you share what you've gone through and how far you've come, they realize, wow, like I can do it too. And it doesn't happen overnight, like literally 20 years in the making.
Right.
That's why walk slow. Like don't be in a rush, to facilitate a sweat lodge or like, do these ancient practices when you haven't necessarily gone through the rites of passage because it is creating name and fame or an identity. It's like
Hmm.
you have to be very, very discerning within yourself. And my teacher would say like it's almost like a tightrope you're walking between ego and consciousness, your true self. So just as we are being asked to be the teachers, we're also the students, and like
Always. Yeah.
always, like it never stops. It's always this dance.
Refinement and refinement, right? Yeah,
Refinement.
constantly tweaking and adjusting little things that are still triggering or still
Yeah.
might be a little bit activating, and oh, okay. I thought I cleared that already. Okay, I guess maybe I got a little more to do there, and it seems as though um kind of what you mentioned earlier, where it's like we have to clear out all this um what the image that's coming to me is kind of like a mist or like a fog, right? Of like these traumas and old programs and all these things that we've been told that isn't really who we are, right? And as we clear that fog, we get more moments of that bliss and joy, and we don't need to go back down into those deep depths of that depression. We can just feel the emotions and then just keep go moving up like this, like in a like the dips are become smaller and smaller as we continue up. At least that's what I've experienced. Is that kind of how it is
Yeah.
for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they're, it's hard to say because as you walk the path of life, like maybe something you went through that was painful um in the past, based on a new level that you've attained, it may be a little bit easier to navigate because of the spiritual tools that we've gathered. But I will say as a human being, even though I'm called to this work, my greatest initiation that I've gone through as of lately was death. And
Hmm.
so we are my teacher would say, like, karma is no respecter of persons. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much good you've done. It's like when those initiations come and they might be harder than you've ever experienced, and pain and depths of pain that you've never thought that you could feel.
Hmm.
But if you're able to gather the you gather yourself and the insight that you've attained along the way, seeing it from a centered perspective, you see, okay, like I can actually allow this pain to break my heart so open, then I'm able to feel even deeper. And that's what I would say this pain, losing my father as of recently, has allowed me to do, is like when you can experience like the depths of pain, you're also able to hold space for a greater um, love, like for yourself, for others as well. You can your arms become wider and you're able to like bring in even more people and hold and be capable of holding more love because
Absolutely.
of the compassion that comes from the pain that you experience. Um, so yeah, I guess it just depends, on our
Yeah,
own individual journeys, like whatever your contract is.
for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's everybody's journey is a little bit different and everybody has different lessons at different times. So, um yeah, I guess what I meant by it is like as we clear more inside ourselves, as we raise our frequency, we're able to see from a higher perspective and see these aspects like that we're all eternal, that we'll see these beings again, that they're with us, like an example of
Yes.
death, like things like that, like whereas like from a different like 20, 30 years ago, I would have been way more devastated because I didn't have the awareness and the tools.
Thank you for bringing that up because actually you're completely right. I don't know, without the wisdom that I've attained along the way, how I would have experienced my dad's death at that level of consciousness without knowing that death is not the end, through all of these teachings. And yeah, thank you for that reminder. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I can say that because I my mom passed 5 years ago now, right before COVID hit,
Wow.
and so she her soul knew that it would get really crazy, and she left right before it, and so I've been on that journey, and it's been really beautiful, and also allows there's layers to it, right? And there's like it's not that I always miss her, but now with my awareness, I know that she's always with me. I can always call on her. She's actually way closer to me in the spirit realm than she ever was in the human form, because she for a large period of my later life, we were on opposite coasts of America, right? So like we weren't physically close together. So now she's with me, and I can always call on her, and I know she's guiding me. Like I
Yeah.
know she's guiding me with all the people that I meet, and all the experiences I have. So that's what helped me shift that was knowing that we're eternal beings, and she's even closer to me now than ever, you know.
Yes, thank you. I'm like I'm still grieving, so I think that that's why I just wanted to bring up just being so human is that even though I know these things, it's like the experience in this human body does not like it's the same for everyone, you know? It's that you're
Hmm.
going to go through those emotions
For sure.
and I'm grateful for that because I know that's one of the reasons why we came back maybe is to just experience the range of emotions, you know, so that we can help others and our lineage.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, where it's like allowing ourselves to feel, because in today's society so many people numb out, whether it's with alcohol or with sex or with video games or whatever it is they do to not feel. Um, I know I did it for a very long time, before my awakening. I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with the chaos in the household or whatever it was. So I would just numb out. I'd go into another world, and I think the healing is in the feeling, and allowing ourselves to go through whatever emotions and not making any of them wrong, right? Like a lot of people think being angry is wrong. Like we shouldn't be angry. We need to just be chill all the time, right? And it's like, no, if you're feeling that anger, there's healthy ways to move through it.
Yeah, and especially our ancestors, they weren't actually allowed to feel because they had to survive. So that program is very much embedded within all of us. And it's time to clear that for sure.
Just to take it on a lighter note, I saw a meme the other
Yep.
day where it was like this person praying to connect with their ancestors, and it was a caveman. I might have even sent it to you, and he was like "Ugu Gaga," you know. And I was just thinking about like the cavemen, and they definitely expressed their emotions and did not repress anything from my you know, perspective of that time. So I guess it just depends on how far back you talk about our ancestors.
That's true. Before they had words or a language, you know, they were screaming it or doing whatever they needed to do to release it, you know?
Right, right, right. That
Yeah.
there's even classes and courses like primal release, right?
Yep. The
Like,
primal scream.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
like allowing for that whole spectrum of emotions. Um, so. we got a little bit off off of the track, but that's how this podcast goes sometimes. So,
Yes.
so you had this amazing experience at the ashram. Then you had this experience with your mom and going to prison, right? So where did it go from there?
Um, I fell in love. And I ended up going to LA with my partner at the time. He was a designer. He owned a bespoke clothing company, which is mainly means like handmade.
Mm,
Um, and so I was also at the time completely lost. Like, as much as I thought I had found my path, or which I did, I was very lost in the world as to like what that was gonna look like. Like, I integrating your like quote unquote spiritual identity yourself into like your a way of being that you like kind of were used to growing up was a journey within itself.
hmm.
Um, because, like for instance, I was in hip hop, like I was, I smoked weed, like I, hung out with people I probably shouldn't have, but I was always kind of drawn to these spaces and didn't understand why. Later on, I realized that I was meant to bring the light into those spaces. But he, fast forward a few years later, I started the business in downtown LA. And I remember one year my teacher was coming back to the States, and it was the same day that he was having a fashion show in New York for New York Fashion Week, which was a huge deal.
Oh yeah.
And so I was also creative directing with him. Basically, I completely gave my entire life to this person. And and then one day that date fell on the same day as my teacher coming back from India. And it was a crossroads. And he said, go and be with your teacher, and I'll do this alone. He It was an amazing experience, amazing retreat. I actually experienced the oneness in Shasta because the retreat was in Shasta,
Oh wow.
and that was the year that made me a teacher. That was the year that I was made an acharya, which
Mm.
is a Kriya teacher.
Oh
And it
wow.
takes a while to get to that point. But I could have easily chosen to go to New York and live this life that wasn't really for me, but I love this person and I was living in their shadow. And so I had an experience of meditation in Shasta where the Earth Mother started to breathe through me. Um, I remember my teacher would say, like, there will be a moment with the Kriya, with the breath, where you will no longer be consciously breathing and God will breathe through you.
Oh wow. I'm getting chills with that
And
too.
so yeah, and I was sitting and I had a friend with me at the time who was like a disciple of my teacher for many years. He was behind me. And so I'm sitting in this circle of trees, which later on I realized that is called a cathedral. When trees form in a circle and grow in that way, it's literally called a cathedral. It's a portal. So
Mm,
I was sitting in the middle and I started to do the Kriya, and all of a sudden I stopped breathing and I felt it, but my breath was became one with the wind. And
mm,
as I began to be conscious of it, I was like, no way, this isn't happening. And the tree would be still. But then I would allow and surrender to this thing that was happening inside of me. And then I would become one again with the elements. And the sun was coming out even brighter. And I looked back crying and I said, do you see this? And he said, the earth is blessing you.
mm.
Um, and I
That's so
came back
powerful.
to it was something that I can't explain to you because I've been waiting for so many years to become a teacher, but I wasn't rushing it because I was like, I have to focus on my own practice. Like, let me master that first and let me actually sit down and be disciplined enough, right? Um, but it happened. And when I came back to LA, my partner at the time told me, he said, you're not going to like what I'm about to do. I love you, but I have to let you go. And after that, he sold his soul to Satan. This is something that I can't make up. Um, he started going in a total opposite direction, and I'm thankful that I came back to what I meant to do and who I am because yeah, that was some one of the biggest heartbreaks I would say, but it was a catalyst for stepping back into my power
Hmm.
as a teacher.
So as you're at the retreat, and this is your first time to Mount Shasta, right?
This was maybe like my third time
Okay.
in Mount Shasta.
Did you know in that moment that you'd want to live there one day?
No.
You didn't. Okay.
No.
Okay. So you live there now, and currently we're doing this podcast. You're right by Mount Shasta, right? In the
I'm
town.
in Mount Shasta, yeah.
Okay. And so what can you talk a little bit about that? Like, when did you move there? What brought you there? Like, did you receive a message from Spirit? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, fast forward. Um, After that awakening, I started to work with the homeless. I was like doing things that were more purposeful. Um, I created a organization called Ignite Community Healing, where I had women. We we were organizing street cleanups
Oh,
and
beautiful.
events for the homeless to provide supplies for them. And when that happened, I met a lot of healers along the way, which kind of like reminded me, oh, like this is where you're going. And I started having like sound baths at the space and healers
Mm.
coming in and saying like, oh, you're a healer. And I'm like, no, I'm just like a circuit. I'm just a circuit. Like I just bring people together. Like, no way, no way I would be worthy enough, right, of that. And then the pandemic hit in 2019, I think, and I like a few weeks into it, into the lockdown, I was lying on my couch and I heard. So, like when I'm waking up and I'm in between states of consciousness, like in the waking state and kind of still in the sleeping state, um, I hear spirit, but it's very clear. Like it's like a
Mm.
whisper. Like, and sometimes there was around that time it said, the voice said on another occasion, you are the leaders of the new age.
Mm.
And then I'm like, okay, that's weird. I'm not. And then so a couple weeks later after that, I was on my couch and I heard, go to the mountain and go to the mountain. And I was like, go to the mountain. I'm like, what mountain? And so I
There-
just,
There's only
I
one, one
know,
important
right?
one.
In California, right? At
Yeah.
least. And and I started looking up places in Mount Shasta. And I actually started coming to Mount Shasta while everyone was on lockdown. And,
Mm.
because our families couldn't get together. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to nature and I'm not going to focus on the fear. I'm going to go back to nature. I'm going to go back into my heart during the darkest times. And, and then I remember walking into one of these metaphysical stores, and the owner said, if you're meant to be here, if the mountain wants you here, everything will open up for you.
Mm.
And I saw this place, and that same week, somebody wanted to like look for a place in LA to sublet, and I subletted my apartment. So I had my place in LA for about a year, and I had a place in Shasta
Hmm.
because I still had my business in LA. So I was going
Okay.
back and forth initially.
Hmm.
Very different from LA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
for those that haven't been to Shasta, um, it's known as the root chakra of the earth, and it can sometimes flip to be the crown, right?
interesting.
I've heard that before, but I know that Mount Kailash is officially known as the crown chakra of the planet, which is where Shiva, it's a very sacred site where in Nepal where Shiva would meditate and lived and some people still believe he lives there to this day. But Mount Shasta is such a sacred space. A lot of people go there for the Lion's Gate, which is a portal that opens up to connect to the Pleiadian planets and the people from Pleiades on August 8th, 8/8, which is like two infinity signs, right? And people gather there and celebrate, and it's like a really beautiful time of the year. That's and there's a lot of metaphysical stuff that happens there. There's big tons of Bigfoot sightings. There's little people that live on the mountain. There's Telos, which is a magical Lemurian city inside the mountain, which I think is in another dimension. So it's
Mhm.
difficult to for people to see it. And at least in this dimension. But there are videos and people that have gone there. So yeah, those are just kind of a few little things that I know. I'd love to hear more from your perspective, being as you've lived there for several years now.
Yeah, as I started to come here, I realized that there was a very palpable difference. Like I would come here and then I would go back to the city and I would see how just by being near the mountain, my entire like auric field would be recalibrated. Like I would go back to the city and people would open doors and the parking spaces would open up, and we all know how hard that is in LA. And
Yeah.
like just smiling and the whole world is opening up, and I'm like, what is this realignment that's happening? Like why? And I started to learn about Mount Shasta and how they're different, just as the body, as the human body has chakras, so does the earth.
Mhm.
And these uh energy centers or vortexes are sacred sites where there is almost more potent energy, or portals where people go and they receive different codes, different activations, healings, contact with particular beings. And these points on the earth, like we'll use Egypt as an example, the pyramids, those are said to be actual spaceships that connect to Sirius B. For Mount Shasta, it's more like you said, the Pleiadians or the Lumerians. Different parts that you go to on the earth, you're going to, through these portals, you're going to connect with specific beings. And when you do connect with these beings and you are in the same vicinity, you begin to carry those codes. And just as I always say, like when you connect with different deities and animal spirits, each of them carry medicine. And so, a specific medicine that when you connect with them, you begin to carry, you begin to embody it because they become your ally. And we've always been connected, right? But we're just catching up in terms of timelines, and we won't talk about time because that's a whole nother story. But a lot of us believe that past, present, and future doesn't exist and it's all one, and time isn't linear. So we're just kind of catching up to these aspects of ourselves as through remembrance of like connecting with these beings. And Mount Shasta is a huge portal. And so when you come here, your life will never be the same. If the mountain calls you, um, you may have had like a other lifetime, we won't say past life, other lifetime connection to the mountain.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a powerful place. I've seen things that I can't explain. I saw a spaceship, but it wasn't like I thought it would be. People are always waiting, right, for the contact to happen, but really they're already here. These dimensions are invisible.
Hmm.
These beings can be here right next to you and you just don't see them because maybe the naked eye doesn't see them until you become fully activated and experiencing life through almost like an ayahuasca lens, right? Of like seeing all of those things that exist in the this negative space. Um, it's all here. And so if you do want to tap into that energy, Mount Shasta is like the place to go. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
One
yeah,
one of them I would say in California.
yeah, for sure. And to add to that, from I watched a lot of like UFO documentaries and things like that, and researched the crop circles around the planet. And what I've found is that uh, it's not that they're invisible; they're just on a different frequency of light than we can see with the human eye. So, or like in another dimension, right? Like you can call it, they could be interchangeable at times, but like in the infrared spectrum, our eyes can't see into that very well. So a lot of these sightings at these crop circles, they've shown with an infrared camera the where they can see the actual extraterrestrial ship. And I don't think the ships look like what people imagine, like these metal disc-like shapes, right? A lot of these from watching different shows of um, there's this show on Gaia called Cosmic Disclosure. They talk about how these spaceships are actually an extension of these extraterrestrials' bodies. So they're organic, like they are alive, and that's why um, they don't need any uh
Matter.
gadgets. Yeah, like they don't need any like technology inside of it because it's an
Yeah.
extension of their body. It's like moving your hand. It's like for them they're just thinking about flying fast or making a quick right angle and it's doing it because it's just still part of their body basically. So it's really interesting. When I learned that, I was like, okay, this resonates because some of these quote unquote ships are moving so fast and on such quick angles that like it shouldn't be fit, possible with the physics that we understand, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what when I started to during the awakening and also after that experience I had in my bed with the drums, right? And my ancestors calling me back, I was also called back to the plants and
Mm,
and plant medicine.
hmm.
So when began to sit with plant medicine, I started to understand what I wasn't able to clear through meditation alone. Um, I realized that, oh, there's a reason I came to the plants. They're actually going to help me clear really deep rooted programs that come from lineage. So we can use these celestial realms and also the earthly medicines to help us clear the path, right? And I I remembered that, oh yeah, when I sat with Bufo is and combo. that's when it started to um like lift the veil even more because I wasn't always a seer, like I'm more intuitive.
Mm,
Um, and for me, I don't see into the higher realms and see spirits. I feel them, or the communication comes through me.
hmm.
Sometimes um, I I see orbs, but when I sat with medicine, that's when it started to help me see into those realms, and I would see the angels as orbs. So they came to me as different colors, like green, blue, violet, pink. And doing my research, I started to learn that some of these beings come in these light orbs, and that is their spaceship, their Markaba, right?
Right,
They don't need matter. They don't need to be in a physical body like we are to be here
right.
and to help the beings that are on this earth. And that's why we can even say, some of us are humanoids, like the starseeds, right?
Hmm.
We have both. We have you know, we're human, but we're also extraterrestrial. And so we carry these ancient codes that are galactic,
Hmm.
but like you and I were remembering to find the balance between like being connected to the galactic realms and also the terrestrial realms. And yeah, when I saw the spaceship, I didn't see it. I took a photo, and right at Moss Spray Falls, where it's a special place in Shasta, where Saint Germain's portal is a master. He's a master alchemist that is also a guardian of the mountain. His ray is violet. Um, so when you come here, your third eye, the violet ray, is like activated because that's where you are in, I would say, the dimensions. When you come to Shasta, like you're in the higher realms. The higher you go up the mountain, the higher you are in not only elevation, but in spiritual dimension.
Mm.
And yeah, and so when I took that photo and I saw it on the camera, it looked kind of like a saucer, but it was a rainbow color.
Oh
It was
wow.
clear, but the outline was rainbow.
Oh wow.
And and so when I started to see the orbs and I started to see that, I was like, oh, okay, like they don't need physical matter.
Yeah, so I'd love to add on to that. That's amazing. I haven't seen that rainbow saucer orb yet, but what I have seen is I've physically seen an angel orb, and I didn't know this was what it was when it happened. This was right in the beginning of my awakening, and I was sleeping in the basement in Pennsylvania at my parents' house, and I it was so interesting. I'm like laying down and I'm just like relaxing, it's dark. And all of a sudden I see this bright blue, like kind of like the color right here behind me. This
Mhm.
like bright blue little ball just appear in the basement. And I'm like, I was a little scared at first. I'm like, what is this? Like,
Me too.
yeah, I'm like, okay,
Really?
I'm I'm in my house, like what's going on here? Uh and it was okay, so what happened next was fascinating. So I'm sitting there and I get this message of a name. And at the time I had Facebook and it was a very clear name for me to go on Facebook and look up. And the orb telepathically communicated to me this name. And I go on Facebook, I type in this name, and the profile picture is an open book, and across the two pages it just says love.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, so clearly this being is coming to me with love. And so I was like, okay, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like, I can just open myself to this, right? And so the next day, same thing happened. I saw the orb for like a glimpse, And this time I was open to it. I was like, okay, I know this is a benevolent being, right? And all of a sudden, out of this beam of this little blue beam of a little ball of blue, opens up this magnificent, like rainbow, translucent, but also like lit up being where like I could see the wings and but they were like moving with all different colors and it was like the almost like the flower of life was the shape of the wings. If you imagine the flower of life and you imagine the like wings and the flower of life inside the wings. Like it was kind of like that, but it was moving and there was all these rainbow colors and they were kind of like they were bright but also like translucent. And this being told me it was my guardian angel and she told me her name. And then when I looked it up, it turned out that she was um the angel of twin flames, which
Mm.
was really interesting because once she told me her name telepathically, I was able to look her up, and the first thing that came up was like she is the twin flame um, guardian, the twin flame angel, and I was like, wow, okay, so now I have this new guardian that I can always connect to, and I know she's here with the highest love for me, and it was just really powerful because it really like for the first time, maybe not the first time, but for one of the times I was able to connect to these really beautiful angelic extraterrestrials, if you will, right? Like these beings that were from another dimension or another galaxy that were here with me and I could call on them at any time. And that gave me so much reassurance and so much um so I felt so supported, like no matter
Mm.
what happened, I would always have um, this guardian with me. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that story because you were talking about the orbs, and I'm like, you're the first person that I've talked to that has seen them in different colors like that. But I've only seen
Yep.
the blue one. But um, yeah, I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, I was scared too because I was looking at a plant and all of a sudden this green circle comes out of it. And I like almost like I remember rubbing my eyes and like opening my eyes and closing my eyes and opening them like am I tripping right now? No, I know I'm not on plant medicine. Like I'm
Uh-huh.
sober right and and it came close to me. It started moving towards me and I'm like, okay, okay, I'm not gonna move. And it went into my hand.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, and green is Raphael.
Uh-huh.
Green
Yeah.
is the archangel of the healer
Right.
of the archangels. Um, and yeah, and then I started to do research and I'm like, okay, these are actual beings that are connecting with me at this level now. And so there's nothing to be afraid of. Thank you for sharing your story because it almost reaffirms like my own experiences too. Because you share with people, and sometimes they look at you crazy. And even my mom, she stayed with me that weekend, and I was on my way to Shasta. We were going to Shasta that weekend, and I was on the phone, and all of a sudden the violet orb came out of the wall,
Whoa.
and it went into the where my mom was sleeping, and I said, oh my God, I'm on the phone with my friend. I'm like, oh my God, it's a violet orb. She said, it's Saint Germain, it's Saint Germain. And then I went into the room and I lied down, and my mom in the morning told me, because we were sharing a bed, she came to visit and she said, Me estás volviendo loca como tú, which means like you're making me crazy like you now. And I said, what do you mean? She said,
Ah,
when you
ah.
I'm
That's
turning into
great.
one of you, like crazy, crazy people. And I said, okay, what happened? She said, when you lie down, I saw a rainbow come over me. So it was like a rainbow wing,
Wow.
like come over and shield her. And I don't know what that means, but it was, yeah, it was just like, okay, I'm not the only one experiencing this in this moment, in this time and space.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so that's something else that happened, but yeah, they come in different forms.
So when you had the green orb enter your hand, did you feel anything? Did you have any visions or thoughts or anything come through?
Well, more than anything, at around that time was when I first sat with Bufo and Combo. These, for people that don't know, Bufo is a 5-MeO DMT, so it's known as an entheogen. It's similar to a psychedelic, but it's actually the natural chemical that is released in our brain when we're born and when we die. So that's why a lot of people have like very out of this world or celestial experiences as they're leaving and going into the afterlife. And we have access to that when we open our third eye and when we do these spiritual practices. Um, and uh, the first ceremony that I did with the shaman, I was finally starting to feel the medicine. And she says, I see you as a 15-foot being. Your soul is 15 feet tall. Um, you will help many people. And she said, what is your intention for this ceremony? And I said, I want to know who I am. And I said, why do my hands get so hot? And she said, because you're a healer and you're meant to help heal others with your hands as well.
Mm,
And so later on, when the orb went into my hand post ceremony, I kind of started to put like the pieces together
mm,
and then slowly walking on the path, guides came onto my journey, and one of them is an alchemist. His name is Maziba, and he lives in Mount Shasta, and I want you to meet him. And he said, as you gradually evolve, different guides come into your life. Some of them leave that you no longer need,
hmm
but the new guides come in and they initiate you.
hmm
And so I started to understand that, okay, like these guides are like starting to connect with me more. It has to do with what I'm meant to do. And at that moment, I didn't know what that was going to look like. And so
Wow.
we'll tell
Wow.
that
Okay, that's power. That's really powerful. So it so this is really interesting because the first podcast episode is with two of my teachers that episode one is with two of my teachers that do integrated energy therapy, and we work with a team of 9 angels, and we basically call upon them when we do healing. And the way it's been described to me is like integrated energy therapy works with the aura of people versus like a Reiki works with the subtle energy body right over the body. This is like the deeper layers of like past lifetime or parallel lifetime, however you want to phrase it, right? Like where
yeah.
the angels can work with those energy bodies and clear out all these things um, that may be blocking our path or in the way of our um, development and spiritual progression, right? And so it's really putting some pieces of the puzzle together for me as we're talking, where I've had experiences with clients that I'm working on them, I'll be on their head and doing this modality, integrated energy therapy, and they'll say, I felt somebody working on my feet,
Yeah.
like, and like, or like on my knees and my feet or
Yep.
whatever, right? And it's like those little moments are like, okay, I they're there. They're always with us, and we may not see them as an orb every time. It's kind of just, I believe those experiences for me at least were just to show the monkey mind that this is all here, as long as we open our hearts to it. The thing that blocks it is the fear,
Yep.
right? Like obviously that being, when that blue light came to me, couldn't approach me because I was afraid. There's a consent, right? There's a level of consent. And so yeah, it's really fascinating. So another experience I'd love to share was up in Maine when I went camping with one of my buddies. And we went on this beautiful hike in Acadia National Park, which is like this island in Maine that has mountains and also pine trees, and then it's surrounded by ocean. So it's like amazing. And we had just done this really epic hike, and we sit down at the fire, and I'm talking with him, we're chilling, and all of a sudden we hear this rustling in the bush. And I like immediately get this feeling like, okay, this isn't an animal. So we test it. We like throw a little rock close by it, see if anything moves. We like shine a light on it to see if there's any eyes or anything. Nothing. My buddy's feeling it too. And he's like, dude, I'm just going to bed. And I'm like, bro, let's just like share a tent tonight because like I don't know what this is. It feels really weird. Like doesn't feel human or animal. Like it doesn't feel like it's from here. So he's like, dude, I'm just gonna go sleep. I'm like, all right, no worries. I'm gonna go sleep in my car. And I go in my car, and before that, I take my camera out and I take a couple of photos in that general direction where we heard it. And then I don't look at my camera. I just kind of like lay down and I cover myself up with a blanket. And all of a sudden, on the other side of the door, I feel it. I feel this presence of this being, and it immediately takes me into telepathy with it. And
Wow.
it starts like asking me about this planet, and I remember showing it like this canyon with like this eagle flying through, and after that I just pass out. And
Wow.
and and so then I wake up like maybe an hour or two later, and the presence is gone, and everything, like I don't remember any more of what I was exchanging telepathically with this being. And all of a sudden I look at my camera, and there's like three or four orbs in the photos, right by that right by that bush that where we heard the rustling.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, something really profound just happened. And yeah, that was really interesting. So we had been talking about extraterrestrials, and my buddy and I were like already kind of calling them in a sense because it was a big topic on the drive up there and during our hike. And then so a big part of it is also like being open and like recognizing and showing them that like I see you and I believe in you and I know that you're real, and like making that connection, I think is what also opens these doorways for these types of experiences.
Absolutely. And there's actually a group in Mexico that my mom's friend is a part of, and it's a group of like theologists, teachers, doctors, shamans, people from all walks of life that seek to connect with the extraterrestrials or like see UFOs. And I was invited to go to one of these meetings, right? And I'm like, Lord have mercy. Like, they're going to ask me about Mount Shasta and like my perspective. And here I am with like these huge people and elders, right? Like very important beings. And I'm like, I don't know what a little old me, like what I'm gonna go in and share. I'm just learning. I'm just a baby.
Hmm.
Um, but I heard very clearly Spirit say, let them know that the more they seek outside of themselves to see them, like the further they're going to get because it's from within without. And these beings want us to be in a state of unconditional love and like higher frequency
Big time.
and healing uh and so when we're in that space and our hearts are open, that's when they reveal themselves to us.
Right.
Um, you can sit by your window with a telescope for years and years, but really it's like you said, it's a telepathic communication. Um, and yeah, that was something that I had to go in and just share is like, um, because I've seen fairies and I didn't believe in them.
Mm.
I didn't believe in them, and I was in Joshua Tree at the time, which is another portal, another
Oh
vortex.
yeah.
Um, and 10 women, we were all sitting in a body of water, and then all of a sudden, this like sparkle of light starts dancing, and I'm like, "What is that a firefly?" And like the woman who was facilitating the retreat, she said, another medicine woman. She said, "Those are fairies." And I said, "No way." She said, "Yeah, they're fairies. And when you are pure of heart, they will reveal themselves." And they started to
Mm.
dance. There were like 15, like just sparkles of light, like dancing. Like you could see the ripples in the water. It's almost like they would like brush the water with their little bodies or whatever. And and yeah, so I realized in that moment that it starts here. So this is the doorway.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, speaking of
And
s- oh, go ahead.
no, that's
I
it.
was gonna say, speaking of fairies, I feel like they're at least for I've found one place in Utah where I've had an experience with them, but I didn't actually see them. I would hear them at night. So this was a really sacred land that I went to, and I was sleeping in my car in like this van where the seats go down. I put a mattress down, and I would hear them like moving through, and it seemed like it wasn't just the fairies. It seemed like there was also like gnomes or little people with them, and you would I would see the brush like the woods had little archways and little tunnels that was how they would move through these bushes, and uh,
Wow.
they were I forget the name of this type of bush, but they would I would hear them like rustling in the night, and they would actually keep me up. And the people that were camping around me all knew about it, and they were like, I'm like my last day, they were like, "You didn't leave an offering for them?" And I was like, "No, nobody told me." And so this place was like known for them living there because it's so wild and so beautiful. And so they really like shiny things, like little coins, and they also like honey and fruit. So the next year when I went back, I left them some shiny coins and some honey and some fruit, and I would hear them like go right to that, and they wouldn't bother me, like keep me up with their movement, and what from what I've learned, the fairies in particular, they prefer women.
Mm.
They have they feel more safe with women, probably because of what you were mentioning. Like women have more open hearts, and majority of women, right? And and they're just more tuned into to the earth and to the cycles of the planet, and so but there were some men that would camp out there that mentioned to me like yeah, like they love me, but it was they were more prone and open to women from the initial interaction. And so that was really that was really interesting to learn and to see how just by leaving an offering, the relationship shifted.
Yeah, we're remembering that everything we were trained to believe in this 3D realm, in this society, that was believed or said to be make believe, it actually exists. And they don't, they, as in the government, as in the man, as in the adversarial energies, which is all God anyway, right? So um, we were steered so far from believing um, in what we cannot see because if we connect to the elementals, if we connect to these beings, to these angels, um, we will become even more awakened and activated. And just like the government didn't want us to connect with the plants because if we're putting pharmaceuticals in our bodies, it's creating more illness, which equates to more dollars for big pharma. Um, you know, that's why I feel like colonialism had to create this division, right? From like the indigenous, who we are as indigenous beings of this land, and also the colonizer, because we have that both in our blood. Like I'm this color, but I'm Mexicana, I'm full Latina. It's just we are in this time right now where the unseen realms and the physical or technology, the energy of AI versus the natural worlds, those are we're fighting to bring back the ancient ways. Um, and this is something in the Disney films they would see. Seeing is not believing, believing is seeing.
Hmm.
So all of these codes, all of these little messages that we grew up seeing in these fairy tales, they were really just clues. Um, And as we know as spiritual people, even the darkness cannot do anything without our consent. So through movies, through media, they actually have been telling us the truth the entire time. But because we are so, um, I guess the haze is over our third eye because of the fluoride in the water and the toxins and all of this that is blocking us from remembering the truth that we are connected to these spiritual realms, that we are one, and that we can use them as our allies or work in harmony with them. And that's actually what happens in our sessions with people in our healing sessions where we're only the vessel. We are this body for spirit to come through and deliver these messages. And as we open the container, and for me, it's like setting up the altar. For me, the altar is the portal. And so, in many indigenous cultures, like you need the four elements to activate the portal, and that's fire, water, air, earth, right? So when you have those four elements and the four directions intact, those higher energies or those beings come in and they start to do the doctoring. And we are just by way of proxy or where we are in our mission now. God is like, okay, now you're ready to be a vessel. And each one of us will get to that point. It just takes time, but yeah, I feel that that's what happens because even I just did a limpia for a woman. She said, "You put the rose on my chest, and the red rose represents healing the masculine." And I said, "Today you will heal the relationship with your father."
Mm.
And I put the rose on her heart, and she told me afterwards. how did you know that my father showed up right before you put the rose on my chest? And I didn't know. And she said, your hands were at my feet, but I felt hands on my head
Hmm.
caressing me.
Hmm.
And so it's funny that you brought up that story. So it's like that's what's happening. That's why I don't take credit for what happens for these miracles because I'm just literally witnessing it myself. And sometimes I'm not experiencing what they're experiencing.
Hmm.
So to hear these miraculous um visions that they have or whatnot, healings, it's getting more and more intense as I continue to heal myself. Yeah, I mean, they're miracles, miracles happening. Like I just did a ceremony for this guy who had kidney stones, and his belly was like he looked like he was pregnant.
Hmm.
And I took him out. We did a session, started to invoke Archangel Raphael, and he told me afterwards, I started to see the green light that you told me to visualize, and it started to enter my body to exactly where my womb was. And you put your hand where my pain was. How did you know that? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just being guided moment to moment in those experiences. And afterwards, he already had the kidney stone. So I'm the type of medicine person that not only prescribes like the energetic healing or the emotional, but also like the physical.
Hmm.
So, like, I felt, okay, you already have this dis-ease that has formed as something that is physical.
Hmm.
Let's hand in hand work with the plants to clear the kidney stones.
Right.
So I gave him that kidney cleanse prescription and also the prayers and the meditation. A week later, my aunt calls me, who's his neighbor, and says, he just bought a new car, he got a haircut, he released the kidney stones, and his girlfriend left him. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? Like, what, like, what happened, And I realized that the light cleared out exactly what didn't need to be there.
Uh-huh.
And I remember like clearing the space, and the closer I got to the refrigerator, I started to burp and burp and burp. And I'm like, why is there's energy here? Like, and it's coming from the refrigerator. And I remember looking at her eyes and his ex-girlfriend and seeing this sinister look in her eyes, but I didn't put two and two together. And yeah, and so that cleared that energy. So, it's just these things that you can't even imagine are going to happen when you come in with the intention of helping or people are seeking help. Um, yeah, it surprises me every single time, I will say. It's like a moment to moment type of discovery experience with this work.
Yeah, and I think for me, that's what keeps it exciting and interesting
Yes.
and it's like, okay, what's gonna happen today? Like every morning I pray and align to the highest timeline and to the people that are meant to be in my life that day and the ways that I can be of service. So it's it's really amazing and it brings up a story of just how like to the level that sometimes this work gets to. And I met this very advanced shaman from New Guinea. I met him at a shamanic retreat, and he was really funny, like really cool guy. Like I really enjoyed his energy, right? Like so optimistic, so full of life. And we sat down at one point and just talked, and he told me that he was living in Australia for many years, but from originally from New Guinea. And so he told me that uh, he had been invited because he's an amazing didgeridoo player. which is an
Nice.
Australian instrument made from the agave plant. And so he had this didgeridoo that he was invited to play in France at a World War II, um,
Wow.
like what do you call it? Com what's the word?
Like
Yeah,
commemoration.
commemorating the people of the war that had passed. And he said he got onto the plane, and when he arrived to France, he started bleeding from his ears, from his mouth, from like all different parts of his body. And he was like in the bathtub, like just bleeding. And it was like all that blood and war, all the people of the war that had bled so much, right? And he was like feeling all that energy, and it was like coming out of him. And he said that even on the day of the ceremony, he was still had blood coming out of his mouth into the didgeridoo. He still played and he still did his thing. And then as soon as he got on the plane and got back to Australia, it completely went away.
It happened to me in Turtle Island, and I was wondering why I was bleeding. I was bleeding like heavily from my nose, like massive, massive amounts of blood. And then I learned that there was Turtle Island. There was bloodshed there.
And where is
Or
Turtle Island?
it well, it part of it is do you know where Aniwa
Yeah, Big
is
Bear.
hosted? Yeah, so I don't know if I'm really bad at history, but I'm bad at remembering dates. But that's why I'm a channel, not a historian. So I know like Lemuria was broken up, kind of like part of it was in Mount Shasta and part of it is in Hawaii.
hmm
So when the bodies of water were split, I think they were moved to different directions. But I know that there's a connection to where Ani was hosted in Big Bear and Turtle Island. That particular land, like some massacring happened there,
Okay.
the natives. And
And
I
that's where
was
you had it?
feeling, yeah, that's where I had it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
Y-
so I can attest to that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know America is known as Turtle Island too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
But
yeah, that
sorry,
makes
sorry.
sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, and also some people believe how California was an island and probably part of Lemuria, and then it merged the um with the America that we know today, and that's why you have the Sierra Nevadas, which form from those two bodies of uh, land colliding. And it also ties into where I live now, which is Las Vegas. If you go to some of the local parks like Red Rock National Park, you can still find that there's sea shells and life from the ocean, like fossils, all over the place. So the whole valley of Las Vegas was under the ocean at some point. So I believe that it makes sense when we're talking about Lemuria and California and it merging with the America and the landmass as we know it today.
Yes. And Mu, like the Mu tribe, MU. So,
Yeah,
and how Hawaii was that before it
right.
was called Hawaii. Yeah, so it's interesting how the earth decided to split.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. Um, I really want to dive, I still want to really talk about the kids. Is it okay
Yes,
if we
let's do it.
transition into that? Okay,
Totally.
cool. So, I'd love to preface it with that there's been three major waves of these light beings that have been coming to the planet. Um, from my research and my understanding, the first wave, like the first bigger wave was, at least I'm sure there was little waves like in the 70s and things like that, but the first wave that we know of as the Indigo Children started coming in late 1986, 1987. And then after that wave, their children, so those people are like in their, like my age, like 38 and to like 30 probably, or maybe, yeah, that age group. And then their children came in as the Crystal children. And then the kids that are being born now are the Rainbow children. And so I know that you work a lot with these Crystal and Rainbow children. And the difference is that these kids already come in with this DNA and this ability, especially the Rainbow children, they are able to clear and shift negative energy really quickly. Like my girlfriend's grandson is 1 years old, and he is so good at if if he bonks his head or if he falls down, he just automatically knows to take deep breaths, and he can just like shift through it. I've never seen anything like this in a baby before. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see these kids. And I know I also recently in the last 3 months started working with kids in physical therapy. So I'm working with a lot of these kids as well. And yeah, I'd love to hear your experience. And I also wanted to mention that there's these special schools out there um, for kids like this. I know there's a group called the Montessori schools, which is kind of like a bridge between public schools and like 3D schooling, or like matrix schooling type of system versus that they're kind of like the bridge where the kids have more freedom, they have more um, ability to follow what they want to do throughout the day. And then the school that is even more of that is called what was Waldorf, right?
Waldorf.
Yeah. And so with that school, they the kids are allowed a lot more freedom where they're in nature, they're like crafting with the things they find in nature. They're like really teaching them all these new age technologies and techniques that are really amazing for these kids to learn. And I know there's other types of schools, but those are kind of the main ones. And you work at a school in Mount Shasta with some of these kids, right?
I do. Like when I was in school, I originally was going to become a teacher, but I just felt like it was like what the teachers actually deserve isn't really being given. So for some reason, my journey kind of brought me back to them now, which is like, 20 years hence. Um, and so I found it interesting that I was brought back to the children during such a pivotal time. And I I was told along my journey about the coming of the sixth root race, so that the children, like you said, these star beings, these advanced beings would be coming in that are already kind of like a clean slate, like no karma,
Mm-hmm.
and with activated superpowers,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And that was just kind of stored, in my memory. And then later on, as I was brought back to the kids in Shasta, this position opened up to be a teacher at this preschool, and it's called Loving Hearts. It's located inside of the forest in Mount
Mm-hmm.
Shasta. And what we do is we teach them life skills. And I take them on what I call nature walks and teach them about the mushrooms and the
Mm,
animals and the trees and the elements. And I teach them to communicate with them. I teach them to bring them offerings as well to create a reverence and respect um, for the land. Um, and that's something that I didn't have growing up, especially because I am a kinesthetic learner and I was brought up in a public school where there was no room for these radical thinkers like me. You know,
yep.
I was labeled as I had a learning disability, you
Mhm.
know, when really all I needed was to to be seen and heard and individually worked with. And I realized that that's what I was meant to bring to these children because they are their souls before they incarnate onto this earth as all of us do. We choose our families. And so these very advanced beings that come from the stars, these star seed children of the third wave, um, are choosing these very low frequency families for a reason. And so they come and they're the black sheep, right? And I know what that feels like.
I like to call it
And
the rainbow sheep.
the rainbow sheep,
Uh-huh.
that exactly. And so these rainbow children um, are seeking guides. And so just as I was, and I remember I had a session with this shaman in Shasta, and he told me he started channeling, and he said, you are like a guru for the star seeds.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, I didn't know at the time what that meant, but then I started to work with these starseed children,
Hmm.
and all of them, I'm talking like, I was talking about this particular healing technique, healing modality with one of the teachers because the teachers at this school are all healers.
Hmm.
And so she said, you're beneath, like there's a part right here behind the head, like that meets your spine, the Sushumna Nadi, um, where there are actual crystals. And we were talking about the crystals, and one of the kids comes up to us. He was like on the other side of the room at the time. And then he comes over and he says, yeah, that's why we have superpowers, because we have crystals in our brain. And then he just walks away. And or this other kid's like uh outside with the chalk on the sidewalk and he's painting a spaceship. And I said, "Oh, what are you making?" He said, "Look, inside of the spaceship is a school. And that's
Oh.
where we are. We're inside of that spaceship here."
Mm.
And so as I'm like, okay, remembering the teachings about the sixth coming of the sixth root race, and then also the songs that I'm learning along the way as a medicine woman to be led into curanderismo. Um, Abuela Malinali, this elder, talks about it. There's a song called Caminito Rojo. And this is an ancient song. I'm talking like, you know, centuries ago this song was created. Many of these prayers were through the Mexicas, for the Mexicas and many indigenous tribes, um, because there were prophecies. There were basically, the song says, mujeres de luna, women of the moon, uh, hombres hombres de las estrellas, men of the stars, children, niños, how does it go? Mujeres de luna, hombres de la estrella, niños desde fuego, escucha luz ya. So the children of the fire, of the light, listen to them, for they carry the knowledge of the ancestors.
Mm.
This I'm I'm getting chills because it's an ancient song, right? But it's
Mhm.
happening now.
Right.
So like all of this started to come together, and as I'm there and I'm like, oh, I'm meant to, as I'm remembering the indigenous ways of my ancestors and reconnection to the land, I am also meant to herald these children like a shepherd back to those ways, to the basics, so that we can come back to the ancient ways together as a civilization, and they can teach their children that, and we can finally be free, break free from the matrix, as we like to call it. And so that's what's happening. We are just their guardians, like, and many people say we are the new ancestors. And that's what we are. We're being molded to be these way showers for these children because they need us. Luckily, they'll have a helping hand along the way, whereas we had to learn through really hard lessons and maybe lack of guidance. They'll be able to be nurtured uh, at a very young age. And so that is something like it's probably the most important mission, I would say, on this journey for me is working with the children.
It's such a beautiful thing, because like when I was a kid, I wish I had like any of it. Like there was nothing available. Like, I always also felt like the rainbow sheep and always felt like what are we doing here? Like I always felt like okay, I gotta just get through this school thing to like get to the real meat and potatoes of what I'm doing here. Like I just have to do this thing, but like I can only imagine if I was actually like developing and working on my on the things that were already naturally coming in. Like I was doing Reiki on trees and animals, and I was like connecting the spirits and so connected to the earth, like my the whole time, and like I remember I was in like a field of like the schoolyard in my school in Maryland had a ton of clovers. And I was like, I want to find a four-leaf clover. And I remember like sitting down and like just kind of like looking for a little bit and then I found one. And I was like, look, I found one. I was showing all my friends and they were like, oh my God, I can't believe you found one. But like already like manifesting, already like tuning into all the things that um I'm continuing to remember as I go. And as a kid, I already knew and was tuned into a lot of this. And then I remember there was a moment around sixth grade where I like chose to fall asleep. And I've talked about this, I
Mm.
think, in other episodes where I was like, okay, I'm gonna choose to fall asleep because I don't have any teachers. I don't have any of this guidance. These beings are coming and they're not of the light, and I don't know how to deal with it. So I'm gonna just shut it all off, And then around 24, 25 years old, it all started to come back online again because I had this awakening with that Kundalini rising up and all that happening. So, um, yeah, it's a really interesting journey, and I'm glad that I had those experiences because I got to do all the things. Like I got to be a party king. I got to go and do all these things that like is societally quote unquote acceptable and normal, right? So I can relate to all types of people in all walks of life. And if I didn't have those experiences and I was just like sheltered and this kind of thing, I wouldn't be able to relate and like bridge those people that are just starting to awaken and are letting go of those denser energies.
Yeah, and yeah, give thanks to all of our trauma. There's a quote, it's your trauma is your prerequisite to your purpose. And now I understand like growing up in a broken home with surrounded by addicts and gangsters and gangs and poverty, that how could I connect with all walks of life if I weren't able to firsthand experience that sort of suffering, like from an authentic space. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we say new age with these ways of life that are being brought back. Really they're ancient,
Yeah.
where it is a new time, but the practices and what we're all bringing as these space holders and medicine people, yogis, teachers, um, yeah, these times have been prophesied, and also the practices have been around before, you know, before any of us. And so, yeah, it was like a surprise that the earth would bring me back to the indigenous ways, because growing up Mexicana in America, my mother being an immigrant, I grew up very disconnected from my ancestors because my mother's goal was to assimilate so that she could survive. And I think for a lot of us, second generation Mexicas, we're fighting to remember our connection to our ancestry. And even for me, um, I can't figure out what tribe I come from, but I guess the more I walk, the more I learn through other elders. Before tribes were invented, we were just the people. We were just known as the people. And that's and Rainbow Tribe Nation, this is the prophecy being fulfilled that we're all coming from these different tribes, different walks of life, traditions and cultures, to become a rainbow bridge for these times and for the children. It's quite an honor, um, to do this work for sure.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good place for us to wrap up. I mean, I'm so honored to have had you on here. It's such an honor to call you a sister and a friend, and
Mm.
it's beautiful to walk each other home, as Ram Dass would say. So, thank you for all the beautiful um, teachings and all the sharing your story. And I feel like we have a lot more we could talk about, but we can always do a part two. So it's been a true honor to have you on here. Thank you so much, Allison.
Gracias, hermano. Thank you for having me. May we all just continue to illuminate this earth and the entire universe, and so it is.
And so it is. Until next time, thank you.
I hope.
I hope.